All right, we're going to take a look at the Ryle question here. So this is the reading where Ryle is arguing against intellectualism. So he's defending anti-intellectualism. Pretty straightforward prompt here. Um, Basically just asking you to lay out and evaluate what is really a very famous argument from Ryle at the time in the kind of, I think, mid-1950s. He was pretty much one of the preeminent intellectual in most of the Western-speaking world. So anyways, this is was important stuff at the time, and it's actually still quite important. Just say a little something broadly so you have a sense of what the issue is with intellectualism. It's a kind of an ongoing question about how to explain intelligent conduct that creatures like ourselves are able to engage in. I mean, we do that. We're able to engage in intelligent activity. What's the proper explanation there? In particular, how much like consciously accessible, attended to conceptual complexity is there involved in your intelligent conduct? Let's say like making chess moves during a match, or it could be explaining yourself to a person who's asking you a question. That's an intelligent conduct as well. Really, any kind of intelligent behavior, how much complexity is really like there before the mind, right in front of your mind while you're doing it? Ryle's concern is that philosophers really following Descartes have over-intellectualized the process of thinking, the process of deciding, and the process of doing. And of course, it is an intellectual affair, but he thinks it's been misdescribed to really kind of overdo how much conscious, deliberate, calculative, deliberative thought goes into it. We can conduct ourselves intellectually more in the sense of know-how, just kind of knowing how to do something, which engages the mind and engages our capacities and has to integrate our mind and our capacities with our body and movements in the world. But it's not as highfalutin layer upon layer of conceptual decision making, deduction, and inference, like he thinks the intellectualist version of that explanation of intelligent behavior has it. So you think there's just kind of a mistake in how we've explained ourselves and what it is to conduct ourselves intelligently. So that's kind of the main worry there. So Ryle's kind of raising these two arguments, a few different lines of argument. In his book, The Concept of Mind, is a very famous piece. There's lots of different strands that all go against this same target. So our reading here has a couple of those. So in the one case, he says, look, you just can't reduce knowledge how to knowledge that. You have to see that there's this distinct kind of knowledge, because the attempt to fully account for knowing how to do something in terms of knowing that such and such is the case, that fails. He kind of early in the reading that we've got makes that argument there. The second wing of the argument is his famous regress argument. Says there's really no way to account for knowing that without really saying that it relies upon knowing how. So if anything, the tables have turned. Our ability to know that it's raining outside, or that it would be a good idea to move the rook in this chess move, or that anything is the case, presupposes a more fundamental ability of knowing how. So really knowing that depends on knowing how, And that's a practical, less intellectualized kind of knowledge, which Ryle is able to defend as being ineliminable as a kind of knowledge that isn't so intellectualized. And it actually turns out to be fundamental for the more intellectualized kind of knowledge. So that's a couple wings of Ryle's anti-intellectualist victory. So that's the main thing you want to be able to lay out, be able to kind of present the target. What is intellectualism that he's aiming at, Ryle? He gets into that right away. So you want to be able to give a clear description there of the target. Then you give Ryle's arguments as clearly as you can and separating out different lines of argument where you see them. You see he's kind of starting a new argument. Good to separate that out because there's a few different strands to his critique. Doesn't have it all resting on one. There's kind of a few maybe related but largely independent lines of criticism. So if one doesn't work, the other might. So, and it's vulnerable for multiple sides, he thinks. So get into those lines of argument, be able to kind of like line up what Ryle's counter-argument is concisely and clearly, and really be able to take some time to show how it hits its target. Not just here's his argument, but here's how that argument succeeds in working against intellectualism. That's the thing you really want to make sure you complete the explanatory cycle, circle, what have you. Complete the explanation, showing here's Ryle's arguments, and this is why they really look like they function as attacks on the intellectualist position. Okay, now kind of stepping back, what do you think of Ryle? We discussed some things in class. I don't know, I kind of think that in the first case of saying that you can't reduce knowing how to knowing that, I don't know, I kind of think maybe you can, but there's this other thing of being able to do something, which is different from knowing how to do it and knowing that if you do such and such, then you'll do it, is you're being able to do it. So we discussed that in class a little bit. Maybe that would kind of muck things up a little bit for Ryle, maybe. The other thing in the regress argument, it's kind of questionable if, what is this knowing how to grasp a concept? Knowing how to apprehend an idea. That's essentially the know-how that he thinks we need to have in order to have any knowledge that is this knowing how to apprehend a concept, namely, I guess, the concept that we have knowledge that with respect to, right? So, I mean, I guess we do need to know how to grasp any concept in order to have knowledge of that concept. But is that really like a knowing how to grasp an idea? Like, do we go through a training of being able to grasp an idea? Is there like a set procedure or set steps that we go through to grasp a concept? Or there is a set of procedures we go through to cook a meal, so knowing how to cook a meal, or like ride a bike or something. So, worth questioning whether or not that fundamental thing that he calls the know-how that's necessary for knowing that, is that really properly described as a kind of know-how, or is he kind of forcing it there? I don't know. All right, so anyway, so those are just some good things to think about, and that's a pretty interesting classic argument from Ryle. Okay.